Irish Gauge is a game that stands on a pedestal, and that pedestal is called proof that train games can be fun brain games.
Someone say train games.
Calm down, Elaine. Not everyone in the world is as excited about train games as we are.
What? No.
But it's our job to prove that this chew is full of umami. I don't know.
You're an idiot.
Believe it or not, train games are one of the most popular genres of board games, coming in all different shapes and sizes, from the gateway superstar Ticket to Ride, which can apparently now even be taught to you by Amazon Alexa, to combo-tastic Eurogame puzzles like First Class, but none is as daunting as the stocks and trains variety. This, for example, is 1830, representative of the stodgy 18XX genre. A set of games where you buy stocks in companies, those companies will then build tracks for your trains to run on, those tracks will then make you money, and then your friends will buy stocks in your company and immediately sell it, shorting the value and leaving you with nothing. And then after about 8 hours of that, everybody goes home. But the best part about 18XX games is reading the rulebook, which is a hefty 30 pages of small font text, so you can take it to the park, sit yourself by a tree, and enjoy the gorgeous English weather as you plough into this behemoth for the next 3 to 4 hours.
But what if I told you that instead of getting hypothermia, you could play a board game that condenses all of the fun of train games, removes all of the clutter and slog, plays in under 1 hour, and all of the rules can fit on this double-sided A4 sheet of paper, meaning you can teach it to your friends in under 5 minutes.
Can you tell me more about not getting hypothermia?
Here's how it works. At the start of the game, each player is handed 20 punts. Your job is to turn that 20 punts into a whole lot more, because it's the person with the most money at the end of the game that will be crowned Grand Train Daddy. Like all good train games, Irish Gauge starts with an auction. There are exactly 5 companies in the game, each with a set number of shares, and you'll begin by bidding on the first of each of those companies' shares, with a starting bid having to be the minimum value of that share. This auction might seem a little woolly. All the shares have different values, there's a different number of them, but none seem to stand out in any particular way on a map of Ireland that's barren of track. But that's okay, you're feeling brave, adventurous. Some might say you're even ready to steam ahead. That was a funny train joke, but now let's get back on track. Since 5 shares get auctioned off regardless of player count, you might end up with some, 1, or even none. But for the sake of example, let's pretend that you did end up with a share. Great! That is now your company, and you are able to lay track for that company. Meaning that one of the 4 actions you can take in this game is to place 1, 2, or 3 trains on hexagons. Eventually, you'll have laid enough track to connect those cities and or towns, and then hopefully your company will start making money.
But what if I didn't win a single share in an auction?
You mean you still have all the money you started the game with in your hand? Oh, Elaine, that's really horrible. How dare you?
I'm sorry.
Well, trains are a brittle, fragile ecosystem, and I'm afraid you will have to leave.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yep, just gonna take all that money, and the door is that way, and I'll just look after it for now. Shh, nobody tell Elaine, but actually by not winning a single share in the auction, she's put herself in a very interesting position. You see, the funny thing about stocks and train games is that you never really have a company that is your company.
I can have a train company.
Sure, but first let me tell you about auctions, which can best be illustrated via the trolley problem.
That thing about murdering people.
It's a famous moral quandary first invented by renowned philosopher The Good Place. Imagine yourself on a train track and behind the wheel. Ahead of you there is a switch, and you only have 10 seconds to choose whether to flip it. If you don't, you'll continue on your current path and buy a share in your friend's company, destroying their profits and simultaneously increasing your portfolio. However, if you do choose to flip the switch, then instead you will pass in the auction, but not before you artificially inflate the share's price, forcing them to buy it.
But wait, both of those options sound amazing.
Exactly.
Let's say you've acquired yourself a brand spanking new share of Cork, Bandon and South Coast Railways. Congratulations! Whilst you are the sole share owner, for all intents and purposes, Cork, Bandon and South Coast Railways is your company, and any money that it makes will go to you. That is right up until someone calls an auction on another share. Now let's say that someone else has a share in your company. Before, Cork, Bandon and South Coast Railways made £10 whenever it made a delivery, and in what can only be described as daylight embezzlement, you got to take all of that home. Now, Cork, Bandon and South Coast Railways still makes £10, but I have to split it with other people. And this is where it gets very interesting, because the second action of the game is called an auction, and you can start the auction for any share and at any price, as long as it's above the share's minimum value. Ever wanted to flaunt your wealth-based power over your friends? This game not only lets you do that, but then allows you to manipulate them too. If you've got a share in Waterford, Limerick and Western Railway and someone puts another one up for auction, you'll begrudgingly bid on it, even though it does feel like paying a second time for cake that you've already eaten. The second share won't make you any extra money, but if you let it go, your profits will be slashed. On top of that, any bid you've placed that's over the starting value of the share is wasted, since at the end of the game you do get money for your shares, but only what they were initially worth. So you grit your teeth and place the bid, only to watch the person who put up the auction in the first place casually pass, because not only did they not even want it, they just wanted to bait you into spending more money. Now next turn, they can call another auction and you haven't got a single pound to compete with, and they can get whatever share they want for dirt cheap.
Who knew that trains was such a devious delight? Aside from literally giving you the opportunity to oppress your friends with toy money for a game with as mundane a theme as choo-choos in Ireland, Irish Gauge is, believe it or not, incredibly funny. That's because making money in this game is a simple matter of hedging your bets and then watching it all collapse at a simple draw of a cube. As part of setup, each city in Ireland gets a random colored cube. They could be coal, ham or ice cream, the three basic human needs. This denotes what kind of good the city is demanding, and your train lines will be supplying it. As you extend railway networks, you will be connecting them to various cities that want goods or towns that'll take any good. The good news here is that you don't actually need to make any deliveries, unlike in other train games. That part has been abstracted away. The bad news is that you have no control over how much money you're going to make, because that part has also been abstracted away. The third action is to call for dividends, which is simply drawing free cubes from the bag and placing them on the board. Those free cubes denote which cities will pay out money. Imagine that you are the sole share owner of Belfast and County Down railways, and you've been slowly, meticulously building your railway network, placing track after track, turn after turn, from Belfast to Derry to Monaghan, and now you're finally ready to reap your rewards. You reach into the bag and slowly pull out free black cubes. On the surface, this might seem great. The color of cubes denotes which cities will pay out. If you've connected cities with that color cube to anything else, you'll get poons rolling into your bank account. And those cities will pay out exactly the same amount, regardless of how many black cubes were drawn this turn, as long as at least one of them was drawn. And because there's a limited amount of them in this bag of each color, and every single cube from this bag will be drawn, I've just reduced the number of times my company will actually be able to pay out through the course of the game, and slashed the share values.
Which is awful. Or is it? Suddenly your company will look less appealing because it's paying out fewer times, but then maybe people will be less inclined to purchase its stock, leaving you as the only person making money from it. Note that Belfast and County Down has perhaps the worst starting position on the board, tucked away in the north with few opportunities for good connections, but only has 2 shares in total. Investing in the first share at the start of the game is a big gamble, but a good development of track and securing the second share might propel you to victory. Irish Gauge Gauge, more than any other train game that we've played, is a freewheeling roller coaster of laughter, emotions, and unexpected decisions. With only 4 actions available, you'll be surprised how frequently your friends will astound you with choosing to do the unexpected. You were certain that Margaret was going to keep laying track, so instead you bought a shirt and didn't bother to connect your railway. Of course Margaret is reaching straight for that cube bag. I hope you're happy, Margaret, with your cubes and your tracks and your money. The final nail in the coffin of excellence is the play special interest action, which involves selecting a cube of your choice, no random chance there, taking it from the bag, once again reducing the odds of a certain colour being drawn when you pay dividends, and making a town into a city which now pays more money. An action done so rarely it almost feels superfluous, until someone finds the right moment, the exact right moment, and then the whole table goes, ah yes, well done, top training.
And they're right, everything the players do is simultaneously annoying because it messes with your plans in one way or another, but at the same time you can't help but admire their ingenuity. The variables are simple, you understand the consequence of bidding higher or choosing to lay track instead of calling an auction. The rules are simple, once again there are only 4 actions and most of this rulebook is just the setup diagram, so all you're left with is just figuring out how to outsmart and outmaneuver your opponents and then do it again and again and again and again until you're all out of cubes or smarts. And let's take a moment to appreciate just how gorgeous the Ian O'Toole artwork looks in this game. Yes, admittedly Mr. O'Toole is our favourite artist currently working in the board game sphere, but I think it takes a master to nail this map of Ireland, especially when at first glance everything looks so plain and understated. For reference, let's have a look at how some of the other stocks and trains games with hexagons look like. This is 1846, another representative of the 18XX genre. And if you're thinking to yourself right now, Efka, that looks like something my 5-year-old cooked up with MS Paint with the help of a fill bucket, and you are right, and there is a good reason for it. Aside from train games being made for a very niche market on a budget of something that's been cobbled together in one's own garage, the art needs to remain functional. Start adding details and artistic flourishes and suddenly a game that needs to be very easy to read becomes muddy and distracting. The flow is tarnished. Ian's art blends the simplicity needed to function and the understated gorgeous greens that brings this game and Ireland to life, but since we're talking about artwork, we need to mention that the first printing had some production issues. The board boasts a beautiful glue stain that is more or less pronounced depending on how lucky you got with your copy, and the table at the bottom that handily helps you with math when you're trying to work out how much each company makes per share has an error. Honestly, we're not really that bothered, but since Board Game Internet flew into a zealous rage about it, we thought it would be prudent to mention because you might care about that. What concerns us more is that as beautiful and dynamic and engaging and simple and funny Irish Gauge is,
At times it has the tendency to run out of steam.
more than a few times we've noticed that a player might weasel themselves early into a dominant position of controlling the stock market by the simple virtue of having more money than anyone else.
That makes sense. Money begets power begets money, so to speak.
But watching someone plonk their hiney in the driver's carriage and not letting you have a go at the wheel isn't very much fun in a board game. Who wants to be stuck in the caboose for an hour?
But that's not every game, and as cabooses go, this is a pretty fun one. Irish Gauge is a playground, and sometimes playgrounds go wonky, and I'll take this wonky caboose because Alanis Morissette, ironically, for a game about trains, it's one that bridges a gap.
If your friends have just graduated from Ticket to Ride school and you've been plowing through stocks and shares, this might be something right in the middle, still having quite a bit of depth of flavor, but with all of this stodgy fat trimmed off.
Stodgy train fat.
Some people will find joy in the fact that a single draw of a cube changes the game state dramatically.
But to appreciate that drama, you have to be into statistics and numbers. For some, this might fall flat because that draw of a cube might just represent a cube. And others might be turned off by how ruthless it can feel. Sometimes auctions will be dynamic bidding matches that ask you to rein in your greed and find the right time to stop.
And sometimes someone will just call an auction because currently they're the only person in the game with any money and instantly win. And if your reaction to that is, I should have planned better, saved some money so I could have been competitive in that auction, then this might just be the best 30 bucks you've spent on a game with trains.
But on average, I would say that you and your friends will find this a delightful puzzle.
Full of surprising turns.
That will make you
And your friends
go, actually, this train stuff is quite good.
My mama cooks in Italy, mama swims in Argentina, mama's got a chunga, yeah. My mama's